Hello, I'm Rick Cutter. Thank you for joining us for the Digital and Cloud Summit for Utilities. Today, we are in conversation with Prakash from HCL. Hi.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's such a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at HCL.
Oh, thank you for having me here, Rick, and on behalf of HCL, giving us the opportunity to speak and have a conversation with you. Now, about me, there's lots to say, but then, just started my career in the early 80s, graduated, started working for an auto and power engineering company as an intern for engineering and programming. Those days, programming was different. And then the company that supplied the computers and the programming skills hired me back into their organization because they wanted a lot more power engineers to support some of the big power plants and utilities that were automating. And in those days, automation was pretty minuscule when compared to what we do today. So that's where I started learning the programming logics and various other things and the utility SCADA. So between the mid of 80s, got the opportunity to work in some real cool things in the SCADA, implementation, got into power generation side of the business. Mid 90s, came to the US, worked at Southern Cal Edison on a nuclear power plant, SCADA revamping, and got into their IT, got into consulting, did some startups of my own. When all that was done, came back into consulting, and here I am at HCL, back helping utilities transform, find new ways to innovate to address the new economy, the challenges. Happy to be here again.
Well, thank you so much. I see you are based out of Dallas these days. Man, what a great city that is. How long have you been over in Dallas?
Oh boy, I was your neighbor a few months ago, out in Southern California. We moved in September of 2020, not too far away. We bought a home, happily settled, don't miss Southern California.
Well, I won't say anything bad about Southern California, but only good things about Dallas. But, it's a great place to live, I'm sure. I've been fortunate to be there many times. Let's talk a little bit about HCL.
Mm-hmm.
I know HCL recently finished their fiscal year, and y'all announced pretty exciting news in January about crossing, I think, $10 billion in revenue. Wow. Mm-hmm. Where do you go from there? How do you double that again in the next 90 days?
Thanks, Rick. We, as a company, and all of us are very excited about that landmark or milestone that we hit 10 billion, and being in that club of greater than 10 billion is a prestigious place to be. Let me talk about some of the key areas that we are going to focus. We call it as big bets from 2021 and onwards. There are 4 key areas that we are focusing on. One is an outcome-based model, where the second one would be data and insight-driven digital transformation. The third one is about bringing in pre-configured, pre-built solutions. And the fourth is large-scale cloud migration. I can speak to each one of it if there's any specific area. Otherwise, I can go from number 1 to number 4 briefly. Now, on the outcome-based services model is something that's very unique of HCL, where we have taken our key competency, which is infrastructure services, application services, and the digital process outsourcing, where we manage business process, and integrated that together and contractually accepted the terms of business outcomes rather than the normal IT service levels. When I say business outcomes, we do for one of our customer, Direct Energy, where we run their IT infrastructure, their application, their front office, back office, including call center. And our contractual agreement with them is average handle time. How much are you improving the customer satisfaction? What are the errors in the bills, quality of the bills, those kind of things, rather than saying, oh, I got a ticket and I closed it in 20 seconds. Doesn't make any difference to CSAT, right? It could make. So in the digital transformation, what we looked at was most of us in the utility industry were addressing digital transformation from a UX or a experience or front-end changes. But when it comes to real digital transformation, the experience matters when you're informed in the right place at the right time, in the right way, right? So what we did is we partnered with one of our strategic partners in building a data and insight-driven digital transformation platform, which can actually ingest data from all sources, including SCADA, enterprise, and OT data, ingesting them and bringing insights that can be consumed by every line of business. It's true liberation of data, right? Now, when you have these insights, the experiences that comes is more proactive and not reactive, right? And then on the pre-configured or pre-built, what we've taken, for example, in the SAP space, we've worked with SAP over the last 12 months in understanding what are the industry best practices, whether it's in the enterprise or customer or even EAM, and pre-built or pre-configured SAP, and we call it base 90, which means we are close to 90% of the industry best practice. And why we do this is we're seeing when we engage with utilities that it's capital expense. And unfortunately, when you invest capital expense, you want to see benefits. And the benefit realization takes them a long time. So what we did was we need to address our solutions where the customer can start realizing benefits early, right? So with that said, we took the responsibility of putting this thing together. Now, this is not just an SAP, but we also have the same in the Microsoft Dynamics for field service management or for CRM. And this is industrialized solution. In the large scale cloud migration, we have built our own IP that enables smooth, low risk, high productivity gains. So we have moved large, complex systems, like in UK, one of the largest utility that was a electric and gas, split their company into two. And the decision that they took was startled us at the beginning, saying that all of the gas operations, both IT, enterprise, and OT, will go on the cloud. And we did it. It was challenging, but we did it. And we recently went live for another customer in the US where it was seamless. It was about 1.5 million. The business users didn't even realize whether we switched over or not. It was business as usual. So with that, these are 4 areas we think are pertinent to the utility industry. And we partner pretty well with almost all the platform players, both on-prem, cloud, hybrid, to deliver these kind of solutions.
Well, that sure does sound like some exciting areas to focus on.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing what HCL can deliver in 2021 for sure. Can you elaborate on how you plan to deliver all those things?
It's a great question. I know, HCL is very technology focused, and we're good at almost everything, but not all the things, right? So what we did, we looked at partnership ecosystem as our strategic direction, where we leverage our partners from a technology, where we can leverage their platforms, their capabilities, and from domain, right? whether it is a utility domain centric, and we deliver those solutions to customers through these partnerships. We have leveraged our IP and put it with whether it is cloud partners like AWS, the Microsoft, or Google. We have looked at other partners like Minsat, Indra, where we identified them as a partner because their solution is so containerized and open source type, not really the open source that anybody can go and get into the code, but it's open source type and it's containerized that it can be deployed on any of the platform, whether you want it on-prem or any of the cloud platform or multi-cloud. So that enables you to provision the way the customer have chosen. And what we see is that it's not going to be one cloud fits all kind of a solution. There's going to be multi-cloud, hybrid. We're seeing multiple combinations of cloud coming into play. So that's a huge play. And internally, the partnerships that we have with the leading OEMs gives us a big difference or a big differentiator to support the utilities. For example, we work with OEMs like Elster, which is Honeywell, where we test their smart meters out of Guadalajara. We tear down meters to reconstruct so that you can improve the performance of the meters for another leading meter manufacturer. We work with Schneider, ABB in the future proofing their products. So we have people who understand what's the current generation product, but they also understand the roadmap of these OEMs. So it becomes natural for us to bring those experiences and expertise into the utility of the future roadmaps of the utilities.
Sounds like you've got some great partnerships already on the way. Can you tell us a little bit more about a client where you're already delivering some of these great benefits?
Absolutely. Let's take two instead of one. And I'll start with one, which is our existing client, who's in Michigan. And we took a very tough area in the digital transformation, which is the asset management, right?
Wow.
Instead of taking customer or anything else, what we did with them is we took their data and built these insights for them to understand that when we all in the industry feel that we have plenty of data, we don't have the right tools. What we come to learn, and beyond that, we have done with multiple customers, we have plenty of data, but we don't have adequate amount of data. And we may have cleaned up our data requirements for ADMS, because ADMS is based on analytics. But what we come to see is that that cleanup doesn't actually deliver what you really require for insight-driven management of your operations, to do asset performance management, to find out what is your risk of an asset from failing, where you need much more historic data and other ways to collect data. So that's a big experience that we got, and the customer themselves were surprised. When I say customers, these are not IT, these are engineering, planning kind of people who kind of, when we went and said, oh, no, this is not going to work. But anyways, you guys are doing a proof of value, we give our time. But we learned a lot from that, and they learned a lot. The other one is in the cloud migration with Direct Energy. I don't want to talk about the process, but the outcome of the process was exactly what I told you earlier. The chief operating officer of comes and tells us a statement. The good news was that there was no noise. The bad news was that there was no noise. Nobody knew when you guys cut over, right? So from an on-prem to cloud, they didn't know that something changed. Business was as usual, performances were better. And that's the huge feedback, a very positive, very resounding message when you work in this industry. There's always lessons learned. I don't call anything as bad news. It's an opportunity to improve. You learn out of that.
Yeah, it's a project. There's going to be bumps in the road, but
Oh yeah.
but if they didn't realize you'd moved into the cloud, I would say you had a blazing success. So congratulations on that. I know that you guys have done a lot of application work and obviously infrastructure and cloud. I mean, you guys offer a lot of products and services. And one thing I can remember from back in the day is you do like the full stack of applications, not just CIS. And now you're doing lots of asset management. Anything you want to expand on that? I mean, I view you guys as sort of a full shop when it comes to applications in the utility space and much, much more. So you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way we approach our utility industry needs are, we have our foundation, which is the infrastructure services, the application management services, application modernization, cybersecurity, which is kind of table stakes. Everybody says, I'm good at that. Depends on which bad day you're talking to who, right? And then over that, what we did is we built a digital core with Internet of Things, with blockchain, mobility, and various other things. Now, with these two, foundation and the digital core, we've taken on 4 different towers. And there's 4 different towers. One is in the grid, digital grid or connected utility. The second one is digital field worker. The third being the digital employee or office worker. And the fourth one is prosumer. And what we've done is we've taken these 4 groups and identified what are the solutions that need to be built. When I say solution, these are pre-built to industry best practices, which means these are quick starter kits, whether it's an AR, VR requirements for field services, for training, or actual field work, whether it's a drone-based image collection and analytics with AI ML model to detect defects, or it's a drone-based image, LiDAR image analytics for vegetation management. We've created all of this, like APM, asset performance management, taking metadata and analyzing the load profile on the distribution grid. For example, we have utilities where we're suddenly getting to see that, you buy hundreds of substations. These are all 5,000 to 50,000 commodity kind of a unit. But what we have started to see in the last 2 years is that out of the hundreds of transformers that you buy, you have about 50 of them, they fail the same year. The life of a transformer could be anywhere between 20 to 30 years, but you buy twice for the same location, then you have a problem, right? So we're able to predict the load based on metadata. And what we get is that there's this EV proliferation that is causing sudden load on the distribution network and causing disarray in the behavior of the transformer. So those are kind of work that we seem to be getting involved in these days.
Seems like you've got a lot going on. Shifting gears a little bit, you guys are in the middle of different components of this industry, which is great experience for your customers. Where do you see this industry going to be in 10 years? Where will we be in 10 years? What do you
Glad
think?
you didn't ask me where I'm going to be. I'm surely going to be on a beachside with a beer and looking at the sunset.
That's a good plan.
But when it comes to the industry, as I mentioned, hybrid cloud is happening. But the mix and the match of how that hybrid cloud and cloud is going to be. We have a customer of ours who says, by 2023, we want 65% of our application on cloud. Rest of them will be on-prem. But, we're also talking to customers who are looking at edge, right? Edge computing, edge resilience, We're seeing IT/OT integration. We're seeing raising of importance in the cybersecurity with computing moving to the edge. Consumerization is becoming very, very prevalent and wanting to get the customers' products and services beyond just the single service that I provide to the customer, which is a utility service. We work with E.ON in Europe, where we are helping them launch new product at a much faster pace, because they see that the consumerization is becoming such a prevalent area that they want to be able to launch new product and services so that they are ahead of the market in the competitive market space. But it's very important to understand that while all these are changes in technology, there are new innovations happening. It's funny that in my age, I've seen SCADA come in and prevail, right? So there's going to be certain technologies, certain disciplines, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we're going to see the same thing, but in different, the old wine in a new bottle concept. But SCADA is something very surprisingly has prevailed. And we are actively working with few of the OEMs to consider SCADA on the cloud for gas operations. Unfortunately, that's an area where we see that SCADA has not penetrated into gas, shall we put it that way. And there is an opportunity for us to consider SCADA on the cloud for such operations, keeping in view the security and other considerations. So in a nutshell, that's probably where I'm going to be for certain in 10 years. But as far as the utility industry, lots going to change. There are going to be something that's going to sustain, like SCADA. Yeah, that's how it's going to be.
So here's the most important question of the day. What beach will you be at? Do you know?
Oh, boy. It doesn't need to be next to an ocean.
Okay.
Yeah, could be a lakeside home.
Well, I hope I get invited when you get there.
Absolutely.
Well, Prakash, thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to stopping by your booth and learning more about the different solutions you guys have to offer. Hopefully our audience will do the same. And you guys have a great summit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.